Get the reservation ready at Poutineville. We'll see you in Montreal.
That's how it ended. Kind of, sort of. Because Mike and Jason went for a while after that. That's courtesy of our friends at 92.9 The Game of the Odyssey app. That's how it wrapped up. Atlanta United down against the Purple team in Central Florida on decision day. Did what they needed to do, got the help they were looking for, and are now the 9 seed. So the season continues for Atlanta United. It is the 8-9 game. It is in Montreal. It is tomorrow night. And so we'll go over what happened in the game. Abe Gordon coming up here in just a little bit. Get your reactions here on a Reaction Monday. Then in hour number 2, as tradition, Bart Keeler from the Soccer for US POD will drop by. I don't know what national team stuff Bart has, if he has national team stuff to talk about. There's a lot of reffing down here, and a lot of it came from what happened overseas on Saturday. And there was some on Sunday too. But whatever's on Bart's mind when it comes to reffing down here, whatever's on your mind when it comes to Atlanta United, we got news of the AM, also to wrap things up from 10:30 and beyond. So let me have it. Whatever's on your mind in the comments, we'll rock and roll. Atlanta United makes their way through. We got the matchups. It is all there. Morning, Alex. And there is a piece of Newcastle news that we'll get into at 10:30 from our friends at the Telegraph. So there's, like I said, there's plenty to get into this morning. Let me know what's on your mind when it comes to Atlanta United and the 9 seed. I think that we're going to have something akin to crossover programming with our friends at Scarves and Spikes. Obviously, Tyler's going to join us on Wednesday for the post-mortem, whatever it is, at 9:15. Either the season continues and you're getting ready for Friday night down at the Erector set in Fort Lauderdale. There's news involving them after they got the pie plate or the Captain America protector, whatever you want to call it. News involving them because there were dignitaries that were in town, and stuff involving Messi and friends, tournaments in 2025, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that to talk about. Do not be surprised if the day goes along in Major League Soccer that you end up with more news involving coaches, perhaps, because this is the Monday after the end of the regular season. So there might be some decisions that are made. In Chicago, we got to see Greg Berhalter with his varsity jacket taking over for Frank Klopas after this season is over. And so Greg gets both titles on both sides of the business card, and he was ready to see what was going on with his team. But once again, as it is the end of every season, pretty much in every sport, there is activity. Will we see the same kind of activity in Major League Soccer? We'll find out. But we do know the schedule. We had MLS Next Pro playoffs on the weekend that took up all of Sunday. We had a couple of surprises that were there, but we now know the grid when it comes to the postseason, and it involves Atlanta United. It is early game, late game. It is early game Tuesday. It is late game Wednesday. And it ends up Friday and then Saturday and then everything else rolling forward. So that's where we are this morning. All right. So it is going to be a 3-way dance to start things off. Jarrett's going to join. Abe's going to join. I imagine Abe is properly hydrated. We will find out in short order. So Jarrett and Abe dropping by first thing on Monday morning. Abe, are you properly hydrated for this segment, sir?
No, but I'm working my way there. I did put in quite the efforts on the streets of Midtown and Piedmont yesterday, so I got to refuel, but we're working our way there.
Are you going to do when they're doing the Peachtree Road Race in reverse in winter? You doing that?
I'm hoping to, yeah.
Yeah. I saw them like, Abe's going to do that.
I'm going to try to.
Yeah. Abe's feral enough to do this.
The boss is going to. She has already said that she is going to do it. So that will be intriguing when it comes to I want to see how this works because the boss is actually intrigued about doing it because she does the Peachtree. And
we did the easy part of it yesterday as part of the 10-miler. We kind of ran backwards down Peachtree. But only to the bottom. We didn't head back up the second half of the race. So that's obviously the tough part, or will be come January 4th. So
yes. So 1-4-2-5 will be the back. Now, are you going to physically run it backward? I mean, like literally, are you going to like?
No, probably not. I feel like I'd fall down the first hill if I go backwards. I mean, I'm pretty proficient running backwards on a flat road. I don't know how I'd go downhill with any speed.
That's what, but I figured I would ask because you know that there's going to be some running dude who's going to sit there and say, okay, well, if the race is backward, then I'm going to run backward, and he's going to, he's going to make the turns. And
will he wear his whole kit backwards? And
probably,
probably not the shoes. I guess that'd be tough.
that'd be a little difficult to try and navigate that if you wore your shoes backward. But I imagine, maybe they'll be the dude that will run the whole thing backward. He'll have his number on his back. He'll have his shorts on backwards. It might be a little difficult for certain situations if you have to.
I just hope I don't lose to that guy. Like that'd be
bad.
That'd be like the ego hit of all
That's
time. If like you're going hard and that guy's just backwards running faster than you. So
yeah, that'd be bad form.
I might take him out if I see him in front of me.
All right. It is time for the postmortem, or at least for the postmortem to start. So first question, now that you've had a couple of like a day plus to think about it, 10%, huh? Some 10%, Abe. They converted.
All right. So I don't know how those numbers got to be because I never believed them to begin with. And I know that number had been floated around, but like I said all week last week, and I think I told you the same thing, John. Like if Atlanta United wins, I do feel good about them getting the results. I don't know why. All the teams are at home. One of the team didn't have anything to play for. For whatever reason, I felt like they would get the results needed if they could just handle their own business. It was a weird evening because Atlanta United goes up 2-0, and most of us kind of stopped paying attention to United. We kind of just really start to dial in on Charlotte and on Cincinnati. At that point, Montreal was up 2-0, and it looked like they were safe. So we really just kind of almost stopped paying attention to Atlanta United and started looking at these other games. And obviously we had our eye on things, and there were some really positives from United. I think emotionally they did a great job. And I say that because there were two moments that really could have cost them the match. I think Moranchuk not burying that PK is an emotional dump because you're ready to kind of rebuild that 2-goal lead. You're ready to see it in a little bit more secure hands, and then it doesn't happen. And then obviously at the end of the game or end of regulation, you have the equalizing goal and a handball, and it gets overturned. But they were able to kind of stay level-headed through the next 9 minutes. And that was another dump where it could have taken the legs out of you. But they stayed composed. They saw the game out. They did what they had to do. They got help elsewhere. And I mean, they got a fast start. Like, I almost don't know what to say.
Jarrett, with Abe here on a Reaction Monday, what's on your mind?
I mean, most of that, it's you got the fast start you needed. You didn't leave it to chance because it's a team that over the last month or so has been prone, more so than they were early in the season, but they were still prone to it. To those moments where you're like, did you guys check the schedule? Do you know you have a game right now? Like right now. Like this isn't warm-up time. This is go time.
You're on the clock.
But they hit the ground running. They got the goals. You give up the one at the end of the first half, but you still felt good about it. The Moranchuk thing is, I thought he kind of telegraphed that penalty a bit, but he's been nails. The two penalties he had for you before now were vital. The first one, or the most recent one, is against Red Bulls and gives you the lead in a game that was a must-win that put you in this situation. So, yeah, you'd love to see him restore that 2-goal lead, but it's not like he hasn't been stepping up for you before. What he did that I enjoyed, though, is the fact that I want my guys to want that moment. I want him to want that moment next time, too. I want a guy who's going to step up, and you don't have to hand him the ball. He's going to take the ball from you because he wants that smoke. That's what I need, and I want more of it from him. Hopefully he doesn't shy away from it if it shows up Tuesday night. You might have to Tuesday night. You might get a penalty in like a 1-0 or a 0-0 game or whatever situation. I want him to be willing to step up and take it. But yeah,
there's also the potential of a shootout depending on how things go. Look, I actually don't think it was a poorly taken penalty. It wasn't the best penalty of his life, right? It could have been hit a little bit more pace But it was elevated enough that you forced the keeper to make a save. It wasn't one of these like the keeper just falls to the ground and the ball hits him and it's out.
Yeah,
It was okay. It was a good save. But yeah, it wasn't even about the penalty for me. It was more just about what that goal would have meant for the flow of the game and for your postseason chances. It would have felt like securely away, and then you don't have to deal with shenanigans of an 89th minute goal that looks like a handball and who knows. It would have saved you from all of that, but I didn't have a problem with the penalty itself.
Your entire season has been built upon suffering from self-inflicted wounds, so it kind of felt fitting that the last 35 minutes of that match were you suffering. And I have questioned the fortitude of this group at times, and they showed up when they had to at the end of the game to see it out. Like, yeah, that ball's in the back of the net, goes off an arm, and it's not allowed. Now, you can sit here all you want and complain about, well, you should never been in that situation. Like, the ball takes a weird bounce. It takes a weird deflection, goes over Derek Williams, deflects off of a guy's arm, then off of Williams, falls and gets put in the back of the net. You can get as mad about ifs and buts all you want, but at the end of the day, you did enough on the road against one of the hottest teams in the league, and you got a result. Philadelphia spit the bit from 1-0 up to losing 2-1 when all they had to do was win. And then DC, all they needed was a draw. They get a 3-0 blanking from Charlotte.
Breakfast.
You did your job. Those clubs did not. That, at the end of the day, is all that really matters.
Yeah, and that's why I just didn't believe that 10% stuff. Like, Charlotte obviously had something to play for. NYCFC had something to play for, and surprisingly, they were the one that bombed out. Cincinnati was kind of locked in there. So you did get a little help from them who weren't really fighting for anything except a little bit of pride. I do also want, you guys may talk about this later, I also want to shout out, like, continually, like, Inter Miami, who had nothing to play for except the points. The performance they put on to secure the new single season MLS record, really impressive. They were like 11-2 and 4 at home and on the road. Like, the numbers are wild. And like a third of that was without Messi. So go figure. Anyways, Atlanta United is going to win on Tuesday and then have to deal with Miami. So that's where it goes. That's where I was heading this whole time.
Against the Miami team that they are undefeated against this year, because nothing about this league will ever make sense.
No.
Yes, exactly. And he'll have to play. Little guy will have to play here if they don't take care of business in the first one. Anyways, we got Tuesday first, and we got to deal with Joseph Martinez. I think it's actually a really good matchup coming at a good time. I know Montreal's playing very good form right now. They've won 4 of their last 5. I think they had an undefeated. Maybe they lost 1, but in October. But you just played them here in Atlanta. You kind of just finished preparing for them and then had that match. And now you can take the preparation, make the adjustments based on what didn't work covering Joseph, and go from there. And so I think it's a decent matchup right now. I think it's coming at a decent time. The question is, and as we know, there's been no bones about it. There's been zero consistency with Atlanta United effort to effort. And so maybe they find a way to find some, because if they get off to a quick start again, like they did against Red Bulls, even though it didn't turn into a first half goal, but also like they did on Saturday night, which turned into 2 goals in the first, 16 minutes. If you do that again, you're going to go into Stade Saputo and pick up a win. But you got to look good early. You can't go out there like the Falcons did and watch the Seahawks roll up and down the field on you. And we've seen that all too often from Atlanta United. But in the last couple of times out, something maybe got figured out about how to get started a little bit quicker. Maybe it results in a goal, maybe it doesn't. But at least you're in the game in the first half. So I'm hoping we can see that again tomorrow night.
Abe Gordon at 929 the game, hanging out with us as he always does. Batting leadoff on a reaction Monday after Atlanta United becomes the 9 seed. 10% chance. They got the 10% chance and get into the playoffs as the 9. They're heading to Montreal in a day's time. Well, actually, probably they're
Probably flying out today.
Yeah, it's like they're grabbing their passports and their change of clothes, and it's just like, all right, we'll go, and then we'll get it all figured out later. I can't emphasize enough, Abe, what we've seen from Pedro Amador, especially getting into the first goal involving Saba. Pedro Amador continues to just get integrated and fit in. And you're seeing, in addition to what we've seen from him at left back defensively, you're seeing those moments of imagination offensively as well, where he's not afraid to engage in the play, do the underlapping runs, and get engaged and help out Saba with goal number 1.
Yeah, I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, that like Pedro allows you to do things with your left wing position that you previously weren't able to do. And I think that's why, with Mosquera dealing with the knee injury, why you saw Tyler Wolff in there, is because you're getting the additional attacking, not from up top on the left side, but from the backside of the left side. And he really has done what Brooks Lennon has been doing on the right side. Very creative with his touches. You're getting some whipped in crosses as well. We didn't really see that going back to when Caleb Wiley was there. They were asked to do different things, and Caleb Wiley was maybe more running with it up through the middle when he had opportunities. But Pedro is really getting into the attack. And there were a couple of dicey moments where he was pressed to get back to defend, and he did well there also. I mean, that little sly touch to put Saba in on the first goal is an incredibly underrated assist. It is not just putting the ball into space so Saba can run into it. It took a lot of creativity and a lot of finesse to get that first goal. And he has been outstanding. And to me, what he's been able to add into the attack has been integral. It felt like for a while this season, teams could focus on one side, defend the middle and defend one side, and you can just do whatever you want on the left side because they're not going to threaten you over there. Atlanta United won't. And that has changed. And I think you're seeing the result of that, both how they can play through the middle, but also how they're opening up on the right side, because you just can't leave one side of the field open anymore. And I think largely that is due specifically to Pedro Amador, but also to Jay Fortune, who's wrecking a little havoc above him on that left side. And I know he's a little more central, but he's been very good when paired with Sleesh as well.
Jarrett, all yours.
Yeah, so my thing with the Miami game, Jesus Christ, getting ahead of ourselves, the Montreal game. Part of it applies to both of them, which is the fact that you've rotated this roster over the years so much. The guys at the back don't really care about the name on the top of the jersey. Like, you can tell, a number of those backline guys. Like, you could tell Gregerson and Williams. It's Joseph Martinez. Like, Williams knows him because he played against him in the league. Gregerson's going to be like, cool, here he did things back in the day. Yeah. Doesn't matter right now. You can tell that to Sleesh, same thing. Cool, heard he did things. Doesn't really matter right now. It doesn't matter about the name there. I think with Messi, that also there was a bit of an impact when you played him, because it's that those guys, when they get locked in, and it's the thing that frustrated me so much about the inconsistencies this year, when they were locked in, they were not showing an abundance of respect to the opponent. Now, as I say that, I don't mean that they were treating them poorly. I mean that they were not giving them acres of space because of the name on their jersey. They played them straight up. Like, when Messi got the ball, it was, hey, here's 4 guys. Go ahead and make something happen, little magic man. And they weren't afraid to get physical with him. Mm-hmm. There were times where they were not afraid to get physical with Joseph. And you're going to have to go into this game Tuesday night, try and get under his skin. See if Gregerson can go get under his skin, or Sleesh. Go in, get stuck in, get there a half second late on a tackle, try and jaw at him. See if you can kind of get him off of his game. You don't want to rile him up to the point where he starts, trying to end your world, but it's a risk you have to take, because I think you try and get him off of his game a bit. Because as much as, and I agree with Abe, that you want that fast start. If you can have your back line lock in, and if you can keep this scoreless through 45 minutes, the pressure shifts really hard to Montreal. They're playing at home in a one-off. If they cannot get an early goal, when do they start pressing? And do they press enough to start making mistakes and getting sloppy and giving you opportunities. If you can't get that early goal, that's fine. Be solid at the back. Let the pressure ratchet up on them of the longer this goes goalless, the more we got to push. Try and make them suffer a bit.
Well, look, you can say that they don't care about the name on the top of the jersey, where they damn well better, because that guy scored 2 goals on you like 2.5 weeks ago.
Absolutely. I just mean
I know.
they don't have a history
they take
together.
it as a personal challenge, though. Like, this is
Yes.
the guy that nearly ended your season and now has another opportunity to actually end your season. Like if anything happened, like, this is what I'm saying, and we'll have more of this discussion on the Five Stripes Countdown. But, like, if anything happens tomorrow night in Montreal, like, the one thing that you can't let happen is have Joseph score. Like, if they're going to create, if they're going to find other ways, that's fine. But, like, after this guy wrecked you twice, one of them, which was just a poor defensive showing, it had nothing to do with elite individual skill or a brilliant moment. It was just poor defending. Like, if anything's going to happen in this game, the one thing that is not going to happen is that guy's going to get open inside the box on me. Now, that will depend partially on Stian Gregerson and that muscle injury that forced him out of the game. And I haven't really heard much on that. Maybe Valentino will talk about that today before they head to the airport. But, that is something I'm certainly keeping an eye on. But I do agree with you, Jared. And look, I think we saw from Rob Valentino's post-game speech, yes, there is like a little bit of pressure on this team, but there's also like a loose effort attitude at this point as well. And I agree. If you can get to halftime scoreless, the pressure is completely on the home team, as it is, by the way, in any series, like not just in this specific instance. But I think anytime the pressure goes on to the home squad. And so I agree with you. If you can, again, for me, starting fast doesn't even mean you have to go up 2-0 16 minutes in. I think Red Bulls is a perfect example. Like, look dangerous, be dangerous. Even if you don't get the score, though, you're not conceding and down 2-0 at halftime, and then you'll see what happens in the second half. I would like their chances if they can get to halftime scoreless.
All right, so we've talked about a couple of players in a couple of different situations. Who else is in the Abe Gordon spot shadow for this match against Montreal for Atlanta United to be successful? Who else are you looking at?
Yeah, I mean, it just feels more and more, and maybe this is unfair because other guys have started to get involved, but it still feels more and more like when I'm asking or needing a goal, it comes down to Saba. He's the guy that still feels the most dangerous. And I know TRA has found some goals at times. I know Daniel Rios has found some goals at times. We've seen moments from Alexei Miranchuk. It just always feels like it leads to Saba. And look, we kept a tally all season long on our man of the match, stuff. Saba had 5 and Goose had 5. And if you're going to do it on the back end, we need to see another performance like Brad Guzan had, and he was outstanding on Saturday night. I mean, there was a moment before your first goal that they could have gone up 1-0. He dives and gets one high or mid net with his left paw, and he pumps up himself behind the net. He pumps up the team, and you're off and running 2-0. I think you got to see that performance from him again, but it just on the top end, look, you're not winning this game 0-0. You're not going to face Miami without scoring goals. At some point, you have to score. And like, if it is 0-0 through regulation, then it comes down to PKs. But you know what I mean in a general sense. You have to score at some point to advance. And it just, the more we play the season out, the more it feels like it is Saba. He's the one that consistently feels dangerous. It doesn't even have to be him necessarily with the final touch on net. But it feels like runs and shots. If he's into the game early, it feels like the rest of the team comes with him.
Broadcast plans for Atlanta United and CF Montreal never to be Impact ever again.
Yeah, no, we're ready to roll. We got the text after the game on Saturday night, like, hey, you guys good for Tuesday? It's a quick turnaround, whatever. But regular stuff, Five Stripes Countdown for a full hour. We'll start at 6:30 with Jason and Mike coverage of the game live from Stade Saputo in Montreal. Their passports get one more stamp this season, apparently. There at 7:30, but ready to roll. And look, you know what? It's a quick turnaround. If they advance, we'll be ready to roll Friday as well. If we are lucky enough to have the start of a 3-game series against Miami. We'll be there on Friday as well. So it could be a busy week for United coverage on 92.9 The Game.
As always, my friend, great to see you batting leadoff as our Ricky Henderson on Reaction Mondays here on SDH. We'll catch up with you soon, my friend.
Yeah, appreciate it, fellas. We'll see you.
He doesn't talk nearly enough in the third person for Ricky Henderson.
That's true. That is absolutely true. So now he's going to go run backward and not trip over himself.
That's right. Exactly.
All right. Good. All right. Time to roll over the highlights. Once again, courtesy of our friends at 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. And obviously, we'll roll it from the beginning and we'll walk through what happened in the match. And we do have some sound from post-game with Rob Valentino as well. So we mentioned how things are early on, and you end up getting a goal. And we mentioned the continued love fest, justifiably so, that we have for Pedro Amador. Saba early on, 1-0. Atlanta United and Orlando City, 92.9 The Game in the Odyssey app.
Wolf pivoting back along the near touch line and scooting it back to Fortune. Gives it right back to Wolf. Square to Saba, the left wing. Dribbles left corner of the 18. To Amador, back to Saba. Shot, score! In the 7th minute. Listen, all you all, it's a sabotage. And Atlanta United leads on decision day in Orlando.
I love when we get to play that. That's just so much fun. So 1-0 at that point. And then, Jarrett, we've been looking at Orlando in years past. And in the regular season, they've done the slow fade. They've kind of corrected that with Oscar Pareja in recent years. But I don't know, there's always that thought in the back of your head that, Orlando is regressing at the worst possible time. And it showed in the first 20 minutes that this is the Orlando that we expect late in the year.
But they haven't been that. They won 6 of 7 coming into the game. It's not like Orlando was tripping over themselves.
No. But traditionally with the old...
Traditionally, yes, but this year, no.
I
They
know.
were one of the best teams in the league second half of the year.
Yeah.
You had... The funny part about this weekend is that you had the most difficult matchup of anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, Philadelphia has Cincinnati coming in. Cincinnati has nothing to play for.
Right.
It's the Philly Cincy kind of, the little brother derby with the front office and the coaching staff.
Yes.
But, Philadelphia's at home.
Mm-hmm.
DC is at home.
Yeah.
Montreal is at NYC, but
I was at Stade Saputo.
Oh, Stade Saputo, but NYC, but Charlotte and NYC are in the playoffs. Like, they might be fighting for a position, but they're not fighting for their lives.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the end of the world, one way or another, depending on how that happens. You had the most difficult game.
Yeah.
And you were the ones who didn't spit the bit.
Nope.
So there you go. It would be very funny if you somehow met Orlando in the playoffs again.
Ooh.
Like down the line, like the Eastern Conference, weirdest Eastern Conference final you can possibly think of.
Yes.
Also, Orlando has to go play Charlotte in a 3-game series now, which might end up with teeth on the ground.
Kalina v. Gillespie in net. I'm not anticipating a whole lot of goals being scored in that series. Just off the top of my head, I'm not anticipating. 1-0 became 2-0, courtesy of a lot of activity in front of the net. Here's what happened with Jamal at the end of it all. Once again, 92.9 The Game on the Odyssey app.
Alexei goes long to the near post, and it's parried off the line. Alexei rebound, score! TRA! It's 2-0 to Atlanta! The initial ball was flicked on and parried off the line by an off-balance Gillespie. The rebound is slammed home. Atlanta's got a 2-0 lead.
And it was good to see Jamal get on the score sheet, considering how his season has been, whether it's injuries, fighting injuries, inconsistency, having to jump back in the lineup. Jamal ends up getting goal number 2 to make it 2-0. And I will say, full disclosure, I don't know what because you were
I was out and about.
you were out and about and was not able to keep an eye on anything going on short of looking at a device when others were not looking at you, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I had, full disclosure, I had the 55 on MLS 360. We had Mike and Jason on here in the office. I had random college football game on monitor number 2, and I had live standings going on with the main computer. So that's where I was, and I was looking at, okay, do we need to look here, here, and here? And by the way, Kevin and everybody up at MLS 360, great job, especially with the chaos that was going on in the Western Conference late with LAFC and LAG chasing after the Western Conference title. It was just nuts, but that's what MLS 360 is, to have nights like that on Saturday night. So 2-0, and then you get into the second 45, it turns into 2-1 as we're all watching everything going on around us. Head on a swivel. Here was the 2-1 goal. Once again, 92.9 the game in the Odyssey app.
Orlando coming back the other way. Torres back the other way. At the top of the arc, ahead to Thoraldson, right side of the box, dribbles to the end line, cut back cross, past everyone. It'll be run down at the far corner flag by Santos. Another cross at the near post, header, score! And Orlando solves the puzzle and gets one back in the 42nd minute. It's Martin Ojeda.
And it was activity where it goes from one end of the box all the way through the other, and then it was recycled, and then Jared Orlando makes it 2-1 at that point. A lot of folks were kind of sitting there going, okay, you got to hang on here. You got to hang on here. You got to hang on here. And as you had mentioned, it was one of those where you got to be you were tested and you were challenged, and you had to hang on.
Yeah, you did. You had the lead, and you did that kind of thing where it's a good 45. It's a good, well, in this case, it's a good 42.
Mm-hmm.
You're up 2-0. But the shoe can get on the other foot really quickly. And that's what happened in this instance. Was you were doing fine. You were feeling good about your life. You give up that goal, and all of a sudden you kind of feel those nerves, which is why you do that. Why do we talk about it all the time of, hey, you're down 2-0, go get that goal before half. Make them think about it. And I understand that it's kind of the mentality, as a lot of fans, not just here, but a lot of fans have the mentality of, like, when you're up, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. When you're down, you never think the other shoe's going to drop in your favor. There's just a general pessimism that exists in fanhood in general.
Yep.
But you got to get that first one, put a little pressure on them. And you did. And then Atlanta came out in the second half, gets a penalty immediately. You don't convert it. Ish happens.
Mm-hmm.
But you played a good 45, not a perfect 45. And then you had to buckle down again because you didn't see it out at the end of the half. You almost didn't see it out at the end of the game, but handball does handball things.
Mm-hmm.
You had to show that toughness, and you're going to have to turn around and show it again Tuesday. The question I have for Tuesday is, how much leg does everybody have left?
Yes.
They're going to be physically and mentally gassed. You're going to have to dig down and find something else.
Yep. You mentioned 2-1 and then the opportunity to make it 3-1. And we know that there are times this season where you've wondered where Pedro Gallese has been. It's like there are saves that you thought.
Well, he's getting older and he's not as dominant. He can still have those great games. He's just not the beast that he was.
Right. And he had a moment. Atlanta United had the chance to make it 3-1 early second half. Alexei Miranchuk from the spot.
Action at the goal to our right, at the first minute of the second half. Miranchuk standing to the left of the ball. Hands on hips. He's up to it. He strikes it. And saved Gallese! Rebound cleared over the far touchline, out for an Atlanta throw.
And so it was almost 3-1. If Miranchuk could put that away, then I think the tenor of this whole conversation would have changed. But no, go ahead. For those that bite their nails and like pacing and making ruts in carpets, Gallese comes up with the big save to keep it at 2-1 at that point.
Again, he's capable of doing that still. It's not as dominant as like 2020 Gallese was. Like right. 2020, 2021 Gallese was like insane.
Yes.
It's not as consistently amazing as that, but it's still very, very good and capable of, if he gets hot. Or we talk about it all the time in hockey, John, like get somebody hot between the pipes.
Yeah. Jonathan Quick, 8th seed. That's my constant reference point. That is my North Star. When Jonathan Quick and the LA Kings came in as an 8th seed, you had a hot keeper, and it turned into a Stanley Cup title by the time we were done. So, yes, that is always going to be my reference point when it comes to being an 8th seed coming in at the bottom of the ladder for any kind of a playoff format, because it does happen. Okay, 2-1 still after the penalty kick save by El Pulpo. So then Atlanta's fighting and fighting and fighting, as Jared has said. They, fighting for your lives on a the irony was it was unmistakable. Atlanta United having to defend for their lives to preserve the 1-goal lead. You had this moment happen late.
Pitched into the near corner, trapped by Angulo. Here's his cross. Oh, it got all the way into the 6. Shot, score! I don't believe it! It's Duncan McGuire.
So now it's 2-2, or at least we thought it was 2-2.
He's been told to go take a look.
Okay.
He's taken his look.
He's walking away. What's the call? Handball! Handball! It's no goal! It is no goal! Atlanta gets a lifeline.
They do. They see it out. And here was the end. If you missed it from the beginning of the show, I had to play it twice.
There it is! There it is! Atlanta United is going to the playoffs!
Get the reservation ready at Poutineville. We'll see you in Montreal.
Oh, man. And the comments that were made about Mike on social media. Mike is definitely turning into, if he hadn't been, Munson. So I know, Jarrett, you've got to drift in and out. And so Jarrett drifts in and out. Bart's coming up at the top of the hour. But you end up with, Mike with all of the ups and downs. And then you have that particular moment there as they're getting ready for the activity at Poutineville. Like I said, I think you got to be leaving today just to get settled. And literally it's like, okay, what can you give me? And then you're turning around and you're playing. The winner of this one plays at the Erector Set on Friday night to start MLS Cup playoffs. After the match, Rob Valentino was asked how he feels about this particular, about the result and getting into the playoffs. Here's his response once again from the post game after the match, courtesy of Atlanta United, their own self.
Joy. I feel really proud. There's a lot of emotion. I feel a lot of joy for the people, the players, the staff, the people at the club that have had a tough year. I don't know if this vindicates it, but it just shows that you can do anything if you just keep showing up and just keep showing up, keep doing your work. Stay resilient, stay persistent, and things went our way. But yeah, I believed in this group that we could get in even at the end. It's really difficult circumstances, and when people write you off, I feel is even better. I feel like, but at the same time, like I told them in there, and Brad echoed it before I even did, is that now you get yourself in. Now you have to go improve yourself really again. So Tuesday night in Montreal, and that's where the next focus has to go. So it's short-lived for sure, but you know what, I always take the joy out of things, and I want to make sure I don't forget this moment, because it was for the people I do it with and the players, it was sweet.
Indeed. Atlanta United's now in as a 9, and it's up to them. So once again, we'll roll through the layout for you. And the schedule being what it is, Atlanta United will start things off in the postseason. They are the early game tomorrow. Free side of Apple TV from Stade Saputo, 7:40 kick. I imagine 7:40. I don't imagine they're changing things this early to go. 7:30 means 7:30. 7:30 means 7:40. So 7:40 on the free side of Apple TV. We had Avon. The pregame show kicks off at 6:30, 92.9 The Game on the Odyssey app. And it will be Atlanta United and CF Montreal. After a couple of weeks ago, you got tape. Learn from it if you're Atlanta United. And then the 8-9 in the West is a late night Wednesday from Providence Park. Remember, this was supposed to be at BC Place, but because of events that had already been scheduled at BC Place, either way, it ends up in Portland. So Vancouver's the 8th seed. Technically, they should be the home team, but they're going to be the away team and the higher seed tomorrow night, Wednesday night in Portland for the 8-9. Then Friday, 8:30 Eastern time broadcast start. So 8:40, you bought the extra hour. 8:40 Friday is game one of the Messi and Friends series of one versus either CF Montreal or Atlanta United. Then Saturday is the beginning of activity in the West, 11 o'clock Eastern time on Saturday night. LAG and Colorado. We'll start you there on the free side of Apple TV. Then Sunday, you've got a doubleheader. Purple Team in Charlotte from Inter and Co. It's the early game, and then LAFC gets to play the winner of the 8-9 at 9:45 on the free side. This is FS1's doubleheader as well, so you can watch it on the free side of Apple TV or on FS1. So take your pick. So rundown once again. Tuesday, Atlanta United, CF Montreal. Wednesday, the 8-9 in the West. Friday, the 1 versus the 8-9 in the East. Then Saturday, LAG and Colorado. Sunday, Orlando, Charlotte, LAFC, and the 8-9 Survivor from the West. So that's your early round of the playoffs. Every night means something in Major League Soccer, and you get to see playoffs every single night. So that is the layout. Once again, it'll be Bart joining us at the top of the hour. We've got reffing down here. We got some things to talk about. We've got VAR. We've got handball, all these kinds of things. Morning, Alex. Morning, Four Card. Morning, Emilio. Morning, David. Morning, Abby. Abby, as you guys have been having a discussion back and forth with each other in the Twitch pitch about pronouncers. Let's see. Morning, Alex. Morning, David. And Emilio getting to mention John Davidson in 1979 for his Broadway Blues. So there you go. Oh, that's right. It is fall back. November 2 into 3. So we got another couple of weeks. Well, I mean, in Indiana, I don't think Abby's like, wish we didn't freaking change time. I think in Indiana and Arizona, I don't think they do. Not that that helps us here. But if you're Phoenix Rising or Indy 11, you never have to worry about a time change. So November 2 into 3 is spring forward and fall back. Arizona doesn't. Okay, because I couldn't remember. I thought that those two states didn't, and everybody else did, and we were just like, pointing and cackling and tilting our heads back at Indiana and Arizona, sitting there going, "You guys don't change, and the rest of us do," and you confuse it for the rest of us. So then I think that's an extra hour for them having to worry about stuff overseas, because I think overseas changes this weekend. And then it's the United States on the November 2-3. I think that's how this works, if I remember correctly. So let's see. So, yes, Four Card, the admin was having fun. Admin for Atlanta United on social media was indeed having fun. You got a WrestleMania 40 reference in there. The nonstop access was amazing. And also the post-game stuff. And so if you start seeing FEA T-shirts, you might know where that came from. So I'm still anticipating things starting to happen in Major League Soccer today. Knowing Major League Soccer, it'll happen like after the fact, like after we're off the air, like 11:10. That's when things will start happening. Emilio says, can see us eliminating Miami, but that can't change manager plans. I don't think it would. Valentino deserves a chance, but not here with a smaller MLS team. I will say this, and this is something that Jarrett said as well. Someone in the American soccer milieu will give Rob Valentino a chance, whether it's here with Atlanta United or someplace else. If Rob is given time and resources and patience, wherever Rob is, if it's here, if it's someplace else, if Rob earns his way, continues to earn his way, however you wish to look at it, if Rob Valentino earns his way into the gig full time, or if he looks at you look at his body of work and somebody sits there and says, "Ooh, we like that." You give Rob time, you give him resources, wherever it happens, I don't think you'll be sorry. That's just that's my thoughts on what we've seen from Rob this season. Wherever it is, somebody gives Rob time and resources and patience, you will not be sorry. Absolutely not. And apparently, I did not hear the pronouncer on Jamal, but apparently it was something off the rails. Definitely do need to score early. Abby was like, Watch from Porch Fest. Didn't have control. Slow down the video and listen to Mike and Jason. Yeah, and Alex going Alexei Miranchuk. Yeah, for me, just because of all of my time with hockey and international coverage of events, that's why when all the discussion started with Alexei Miranchuk, that's where I went with it. I know that folks they'll anglicize it and what have you, but for me, it's always been Miranchuk. So that's where we are. The other stuff. Yeah, also had the other stuff needed to happen. Wish he had won a few games, and then I know then it wouldn't have been finger biting. But yeah, everybody I know that was locked into watching and listening to Atlanta United, it was pacing, it was finger biting, it was screaming and yelling, and people not having voices and doing math and all this kind of stuff. It was one of those nights where if you needed a strong stomach, and you needed to make sure that if you ate, that you were going to be locked in for a full 90 plus with all the math. David says at game's end with Orlando arguing, I was waiting for someone to revert to Nani-era Orlando and get a post-game red. Yeah, absolutely. And let's see. And I know that there are a lot of matches this year that you left points on the table. Hawaii doesn't change time. Okay, good to know. Michael's like Abby and Michael both say that Hawaii doesn't change time. 4-card, think Rob's a good leader, not sure of his tactical style. And Hutch says, we've also, morning guys, also seen Rob do a good job with Atlanta United after the departure of FDB. And 4-card loves the taste of Orlando tears. You are not the only one. You are not the only one. Let's see. What was with the other activity that happened on decision day, still have not heard, and Jim Curtin in Philadelphia intimated that he was not happy about the whole not needing resources again for yet another year. Let me see if I can find the longer quote. Asked about the changes needed for next year to avoid the club's current situation. Fighting their way into without control of their own destiny. When you look at our league, this is Jim Curtin quote. When you look at our league, the direction it's heading and the way it's growing, whether you believe in the new rankings or not, in just 2 years, it's gone from 15th to 9th. Whether you subscribe to that or not, you can see it's moving upward. This was the rankings that were put out last week where we discussed where now Major League Soccer apparently is now at number 9 when it comes to most powerful leagues in the world or whatever the qualification was. Whether you subscribe to that or not, you can see it's moving upward. And as I've said before, the ownership groups in this league are smart. They don't lose. So it's only going to keep progressing, which is great for all of us. I've already thought a lot about what I could have done differently as a leader, mistakes I made, substitutions, adding players at the right time, dealing with injuries, preparing for international breaks. All those things run through your mind. Like every MLS team, we're going to look different next year. But with this group, we have a chance tomorrow to extend our season, make one final run together because the locker room will change. That's the reality, whether it's a good season, a mediocre one, or a bad one. There are always changes, so we need to bond together for tomorrow. Obviously, this was before the match. I think the group is in a good place mentally. They'll put in a strong performance. Doesn't guarantee a win, but I'll believe they'll give everything they have tomorrow. And we've had this discussion before. And Ali Bedoya had the conversation. He doesn't know if he's going to be back as a part of the new look Philadelphia Union. And it was mixed reaction as Curtin walked off the field. So you wonder what it's going to look like. You really do. Daniel Gazdag leaving in the 14th minute didn't help. Curtin, after the match, he said, I think the fans know as well as I know that this year was not acceptable. I don't ever want to feel this way again. But the larger point that was made is that, and like I said, this was one of the coolest deep dives that we did here on the show when we analyzed and we took the time to walk through Philadelphia, the ownership group, the model, and all that kind of stuff. The bottom line at the end of the day is that a team like Philadelphia is going to have to spend money on players and not just take transfer money and spend it on resources. Not denying that Union 2 and the Academy aren't doing good things for a triple negative. I mean, yesterday in MLS Next Pro, they advanced to the conference semifinals with a win over NYCFC 2. And so they made it to the Final Four in the Eastern Conference. And I know that the expectation is there to make a deep run in that tournament. Christopher only scores in the 86th minute. That was it. But I think that Philadelphia, from if you take your fandom aside and you look at what Philadelphia is doing with their resources, that's the big question with Philly. And I know that Rich may end up listening to this later, but like I said, it was one of the deep dives that we made looking at the ownership. Ownership is looking into stadium. They're looking into resources. They're looking into capital improvements in taking players that are sold and not reinvesting in players, but they're looking at resources and they're looking at infrastructure. And that is a problem right now, the league going up to 9th in the world. Because you're not relying on keeping your academy players and your second team players because, I mean, seriously, Kevin Sullivan, he's already unlocked to City Football Group when he turns 18. You're not keeping him. So Philadelphia, I feel, is at a certain crossroads. I want nothing to do with Jim Curtin. I'll say it right now. I don't. All I have to do is look at a moment where he is trying to literally steal the ball from Caleb Wiley late in the game when Atlanta United is trying to chase after a result, and he wants to reach over, and he stands behind Caleb Wiley and decides that he wants to grab the ball as Caleb Wiley is trying to throw the ball in. Jim Curtin reaches from behind. You'll remember this. Jim Curtin reaches from behind, tries to grab the ball with Caleb, trying to throw it in play. I don't want that. I don't want that here. I don't. And I don't know if Jim Curtin Emilio can change his style. I don't know. I don't think that a coaches can change stylistically, but DNA is something else entirely. I don't want a coach that comes in and challenges a fan base and refers to them as plastic. We can all sit there and we can all, hold up what's left of dead ATM cards. No, I don't want a coach that comes in and says that fans in a perspective, if the jobs was available. I don't want him coming in and discussing things like it's Monday Night Raw. Oh, I was just saying something because I was, an opposing manager. No, I don't want that. Don't want that at all. Yeah, I don't want a manager who's going to sit there and say, yeah, their fans are plastic. They're only here for the tailgate. Nope. So, 4-card Emilio. I don't think that he would. I don't think he would be considered. Let's just put it that way. Bart Keeler coming in a couple of minutes. We got a lot of reffing down here. We got a lot because we've got to discuss what happened in the Atlanta match. We've got to discuss what happened a lot of time in the Premier League. There were a lot of moments, including one involving a red card with Bart's beloved Arsenal, that we got to kind of get into. So there's a lot of reffing down here to get into. We'll see if there's any other stuff hanging around in Bart's head when it comes to national teams and things like that. But mainly, there's a lot of reffing down here with Bart this morning, and then we have the news of the AM coming up in the last half hour of the show or so to roll through everything else as we kind of wait to see if any other clubs are going to make any other kinds of decisions involving personnel here. Does it turn into a dark Monday in Major League Soccer now that the regular season is over and we're one day away from the start of the run-in? We don't know. But time for hour number 2. That means that Bart Keeler comes in on a Monday where we discuss a lot of reffing down here. And boy, Bart, is there a lot of reffing down here.
Seemed like there was a lot of reffing down here from this weekend, including the Atlanta United match.
Correct. So you are be kind this morning with your mug, sir.
Be kind.
Yes. So I don't know how kind we need to be, especially with reffing down here. But first off, let me ask you this. Are there any leftovers from the weekend when it comes to national teams, regardless of age groups and competitions, that folks need to be keeping an eye on?
We've got the U17 Women's World Cup going on right now. That's worth keeping up with. But as with all youth tournaments, it's about performance, not results. And they're doing all right.
Okay. Like I said, just checking. I just wanted to make sure that we were not that we were not being remiss in our duties when it came to
no one's missing out on duties necessarily, but
duties.
Yeah.
No one's missing out. I forgot to. We talked about this late last week. You were kind of like busy in the other alternative universe where you're actually working to make a living. Canada women's soccer. They have come up with an approach where it is going to be multiple coaches, and they've brought in like 5 or 6 other individuals to be. As he takes another sip of. All right, so let me see what it was. I want to get it right from Shireen Ahmed, and so it was what she said when they came up with this idea for the upcoming window. And for me, I thought it was somewhat typical when it comes to what we've seen from Canada, where it's not just one coach. You're not naming just like a coach, an interim, no interims or nothing, but you end up with a coaching. It's not even a hierarchy. It's like multiple coaches that are going to be coaching, and then it ends up with you're bringing in other individuals as like consultants to make sure that everything is navigated appropriately. I looked at this and I'm like, are you serious that you're doing this? I was okay. Here we go. An interim coaching staff was formed in the October window. Returning coaches Andy Spence, Jen Hurst, Neil Wood will be joined by additional personnel who will provide support for the team specifically during the preparation camp and match against Spain. Caitlin Collar, head coach of Whitecap FC Girls Elite, joins the staff as an interim technical assistant. Maurice Bard Martel joins the staff as an interim performance analyst. And Diana Matheson joins the staff in an interim team support role, providing leadership and serving as a resource for both staff and players. This interim coaching staff will support the team on a collective basis for the October window, for this one friendly. Bruh, what are you doing? Apparently not much. He takes another sip of the mug.
John, it's just it's unfortunate truly that a program with players as good as Canada has, a former gold medalist, although who knows if that's legit or not, is in this state of disarray because they have a federation that can't get out of its own way and do literally anything right. We talk about U.S. soccer being problematic, and we look over across the border north, and you see Canada being able to do literally nothing without tripping over themselves. Yeah, man, that is something.
That's one way.
It was a good reminder that they are supposedly, in theory, going to actually have in theory, professional women's soccer league in theory, starting in theory soon.
Yes, and Matheson is part of, and Matheson and I think Christine Sinclair are part of the hierarchy to make sure that gets off and running. And so I'm hoping that they take the steps and look at it more as an NWSL than a WUSA, where you burn through 3 years of capital in 1 year and you're having to figure out how to do things. I'm hoping it's version 2, where you look at what the NWSL has done as opposed to the USA.
Correct. they have the opportunity to, especially in Canada, where your competition for large scale team sports is very small. You have an opportunity to become a very large part of the sporting landscape, and you're hosting a men's World Cup in 2 years. You hosted a women's World Cup not too long ago, and you just hope that, in some way, shape, or form, they can find a way to make to support their national teams the way they deserve.
Yes. Okay. So get another sip from your Be Kind mug this morning, since you were being kind to the state of play in Canada. There's an ish load of reffing down here to get into, and so let's go ahead and start with Atlanta and the purple team with what happened late. And it was 2-1. It went to 2-2, but then it went to VAR. Then it was no longer 2-2. It went to 2-1, and that was your final score. Walk us through it and let us and break down what either you want to look at it going from decision to play or play to decision. Take it either way and walk through it.
Well, okay. So I think the call on the field being a goal makes a whole lot of sense, right? You see the ball kind of bounce around, and eventually McGuire puts it in. What became very clear to me upon the first replay is that it hit his arm, hand, something on the lower part of his arm. I'm sorry, but as soon as I saw the replay, I said, oh, that hit his arm. That's not a goal. And the reason it's not a goal, John, is because if you, in any way, shape, or form, score a goal directly from the hand or the arm, even if accidental, doesn't count. Immediately after the ball has touched their arm, even if accidental. So you cannot, in the sport where you're not allowed to use your hands, have your arm be part of you scoring a goal. Period. End of discussion. Even if accidental. That is a direct quote from the IFAB. Laws of the game. Law 12. Fouls of misconduct. That's it. It's really simple, John. And I know Orlando, similar to their friends over in Austin, love to, make big, grand statements of discontent with referee decisions. But that's the rule. That is the literal law of the game. And there's really no way to debate it. I'm really sorry. The ball hit his arm, and then he scored. Boom. We're done. It's not a goal.
Okay.
I don't understand why they're watching it and listening to the commentary was so misinformed, because it's not about, oh, where was his ball? Where was the hand? Was his hand in it? No, it doesn't matter if it touches the arm or the hand, even if accidental. It doesn't say it has to be a handball, John. That is not part of this law of the game. Just touches it.
And you end up with that call there. Let me go to Manchester City and the game-winning goal with Wolves, where you have a discussion about a player who is in what is thought to be an offside position. And this is twofold, where you have the thought of a player being in an offside position off a corner kick, and that's point number one. Then you have the idea of disrupting sight lines and making sure that the goalkeeper can't do their job. But it was a very, very thoughtful action from the Manchester City player who was at the front of the charge off of the corner kick. So there are two thoughts with the Manchester City, what eventually ended up being the game-winning goal by John Stones.
Yeah.
First has to do with offsides on a corner. Second has to do with obstruction and goalie obstruction.
Well, I think Man City probably gets the benefit of the doubt more often than not from the referees. But, I think the question is involved in active play. And that's all we always have to go to, is how involved were they in active play? Now, on the initial corner kick, that's a great question. But when the header came in, I don't think that the player, I forget which one it was involved in active play. In fact, he makes an effort to duck down.
Right, and that's why I wanted to. It was Bernardo Silva who was in front of the.
He probably didn't even have to duck. He wasn't going to be affecting him.
Right.
I understand the concern, right? And I think when you look at it from straight on, you can see that, oh, well, yeah, he's possibly in the line on the side of the goalkeeper. He's possibly obstructing him. But as we've learned, Manchester City will get every benefit from the referees because they all love them and somehow are getting their, cars somehow filled up with fuel from mysterious sources. But I think that when you look at this, you can see that the player makes an effort to move out of the way and not to obstruct the goalkeeper. Now, he's definitely in an offside position, but I think it's hard to say that he was interfering with play, involved in active play when he's actively trying to take himself out of that.
And that was the point, then that's why literally there are two separate events that you have to look at here and then bring them together for the equation of the play, where yes, Bernardo Silva is in an offside position standing in front of Jose Sa, and then you see Bernardo Silva basically duck and then go, it's almost magic loogie down into the right.
Yeah.
To make sure that he's not obstructing the header from John Stones as John Stones is going up for the joust and ends up going into the back of the net. So, and literally this was like 28 seconds where, according to Dale Johnson, they only go a half a minute and they're like, nope, it was checked by VAR. Everything was fine. And one of the faster reviews that I've seen in something that, could have gone a little wilder, if you thought about it.
Well, and again, this is when we talk about mechanics of VAR. Now that we have it, I thought that the AR made the right call to put the flag up because, in his view, there was a player in the line of sight of the goalkeeper, possibly interfering with his ability to play the ball. And so you put the flag up and say, "Hey, I have an offside, no goal." But the goal has already been scored, right? We put the balls in the back of the net. That's why we wait for this thing as an AR at this level. And then you can go back and say, no, actually, he wasn't interfering with play, and it's a good goal. Again, Manchester City gets the benefit of the doubt from the referees, and congratulations to them and all the money that they have being poured in from unscrupulous sources.
All right. So what is the mnemonic involving Dogso?
It's the 4Ds: distance, direction, defenders, and distance.
Okay. For this, we go to, and I apologize ahead of time, Arsenal and Bournemouth.
Yeah,
and
I mean, this would have been a not even a foul if it were Manchester City.
It is.
I mean, Erling Haaland's throwing elbows,
yes,
and literal balls at people,
and throwing balls at people.
No
yes.
problem. But,
yes.
Hey.
30th minute, Trossard gets into open space. Evan Nilsson ahead of the Arsenal backline, but he couldn't be offside as the ball was played by Trossard. So Bournemouth moves forward, pulled down by Saliba. Rob Jones goes yellow. VAR checks for a red, and it goes to red off of that. So it goes from yellow to red, and they called it Dogso.
Yeah, I think this is another good example of the referee making a call on the field that can absolutely be overruled by VAR, understanding that he has VAR as the tool to make sure that this call does get correct. So I thought in the moment it should have been a red card, to be quite honest, too, when you watch it, because Saliba's the only man back. There's no other defender truly back. And so when you look at Dogso, the number one thing we're looking at is defenders, right? Are you the last defender? Denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity usually implies that you're going to be in on goal. So defenders, there's one, and it's Saliba. Obviously, the referee in the moment gave Arsenal a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, saying, okay, well, I think Ben White was close enough. That was not true. Now, the other ones, distance to goal, yeah, he's far away from goal, but he's very clearly headed to goal. And the distance from him to the ball and the direction of him with the ball are very much headed toward goal. So all the other criteria are definitely satisfied for this Dogso red. And the reason we give it a red card and not a yellow card, because it's the thing I saw on Twitter, is when it's in the normal field of play and it's Dogso, it is a red card. If it's Dogso in the penalty area, as long as it is a legitimate play on the ball, we can give a yellow card because we do not want to give a team or put a team in double jeopardy and give them not only a goal, because most penalty kicks are going to be scored, but also then lose the man. So in this case, it's a yard over midfield. That's definitely not in the penalty area, and so it is a red card for the dog. So, there are other reasons you can get a red card dog so in the penalty area, like a handball. But as long as you're making a play on the ball in the penalty area, you should be getting a yellow card. But this was not in the penalty area; it's a regular old red card.
Spurs and West Ham, violent conduct with Mohamed Kudus when he and Mickey Van de Ven decide that they're going to have a coming together. And yes, that is the official term. It is, in fact, a coming together. And then you end up with the VAR decision after the ref initially books both players, and it's checked by VAR, and you end up with a red in this case.
Mm-hmm.
So this is obviously what you have when you have the benefit of VAR. This is not re-refereeing a situation, which is what we get into a lot, sadly, here, where you don't need to re-referee, but this is VAR coming in and saying, hey, you missed something, and it just happens to be basically it's a face wash,
yes,
hands to the face, and so that ends up being something seen by VAR that adds to the decision on the field.
Correct. And that's, again, like you just said, when we're looking at VAR as a tool, it is to help make the best decision, right? Get the decision right more often than not. And when you're able to use VAR as a way to gather more information, especially when we're talking about things that aren't fully about playing soccer, that's a good way to use it, right? Because in this case, you're looking at all the information going, okay, what did player A do? What did player B do? And then, there's this definitely not soccer action taking place that we need to discipline. And violent conduct is a red card. So
a player,
not serious foul play. That needs to be pointed out, right? Serious foul play is like within the playing stuff of soccer. This is violent conduct, which, especially for VAR, needs to be used because you're going to, they are going to be able to check for violent conduct because that is something that needs to have a slightly lower standard of like, no, you can't do that, right? Serious foul play, probably a higher standard as long as it's within the realm of playing soccer. But violent conduct for VAR, especially, if they spot it, they need to report it. That's why Mexico doesn't have VAR in their games against the U.S.
Dale Johnson's VAR column is where we get a lot of our information on plays that we might have missed on the weekend. He writes, a player can get away with a hand to an opponent's face if the force used was negligible.
Yes.
Which is probably why the referee was shown the Sarr push rather than Van de Ven's push. So basically, and I guess this is to differentiate, hey, get out of my face kind of thing, as opposed to what you see with a face wash or, really.
Yeah.
So, okay. So,
yeah. And again, there are differences in what we're looking for. I would argue that in this particular case where you have what essentially is a mass confrontation, I would be more willing to just give everyone a red card because they're all being stupid and, act like a freaking adult,
Uh-huh.
And I think that gets lost a lot of times. Like, I wish that could be part of IFAB. Is like, if you're over the age of 18 and you act like a stupid idiot, then you should just get a red card, period. But, again, this VAR is being used to gather all the information because you look at this, and this is one of those, John, where I think we've talked about it before, is the referee removing themselves from the mass confrontation of players, in theory, to gather all the information they can, look at it, have a better view, but you're still going to miss things, as we saw here where players were being stupid.
Yes. Because and I like your differentiation that you should get a red if you're being a stupid idiot.
Yeah.
I think that
I don't think that's a controversial take.
No, I think that should go. I think that, like, literally in IFAB, that's how it needs to be worded. If you're being a stupid idiot, you need to get a red card.
Yeah.
But
if you can't handle your emotions like a frickin' adult, either A, go to therapy, or B, don't play soccer, or both.
Yeah. Abby with a question. She goes, what about headbutting? Didn't we have that in the game before last? Both players get yellows, but the opposing player put his head into our players after the play was over.
I mean,
But
And
literally,
I'm trying to remember what you're talking about, Abby, because you're talking about like a lot of things that have happened, and there's been a lot of soccer to talk about since then.
well, but
If I remember correctly, it wasn't truly a headbutt. It was players putting their heads together, which is not the same as a headbutt. A headbutt is Zinedine Zidane. Okay,
Yeah.
that is a headbutt,
Yeah.
right? Not two people doing what a lot of boxers do, where they kind of put their heads together to kind of like
you bow up and you
Yeah.
match.
that's
forehead.
not the same, and that's again, I would personally say, hey, if they both get a red card for it, then they both get a red card for being stupid, like seriously, like
stupid
not
idiots.
acting like an adult. But a lot of times you're going to see referees, especially if it's not throwing punches, right, or not with the intent to hurt a player, because again, violent conduct. That's just regular kind of old unsporting behavior, especially when both players are kind of doing it to each other. So if I'm remembering the incident you're talking about, Abby, but I'm sorry, there's been a lot of incidents since then. And a lot of soccer play.
Well, but I mean, and taking an incident like that, just in its own case, if we just take regardless of when it happened and with whom, if we look at an incident like this, does it not fall upon review from VAR to then look at, like we were saying, where VAR is looking at something like we were discussing earlier? VAR saw something that center ref didn't. It's up to the VAR to sit there and dial down and go, you need to go to the monitor.
Yeah, you need to look at this. And then you go to the monitor and look at it, and the referee can make their decision then. And that's why I am very much pro VAR being on tool by the referee, right? Let them be able to make the call through the video review. That way they're not being influenced necessarily by just the words of the VAR above them. It needs to be, hey, I think you missed something. You need to go check this. Explain what it is, like, hey, possible violent conduct. Number 21, purple team. I think, I don't remember if it was purple team or whoever that was, but it actually may have been a Red Bulls. Number 21, red team. And then let the referee on the field make the decision, because again, it's their game that they're managing, their game that they're calling.
Something that we got into after your appearance last week was the college game, and trying to encourage the college game to have access to the TV feeds in situations like the two that we discussed last week that were egregious calls, and the TV angle had the better angle, but I don't know if this is a universality or not, but in the college game that I can think of right now, they're looking off of the Spidio. They're looking off the coach's cam instead of the TV, or having the TV feed available to them that can help you out with a call, because we had State and Southern, where on the field you had a center ref not call a handball, then is encouraged to go to review, and it's an iPad, basically. It's an iPad, and you're looking at it off the coach's camera. You're not looking at it off the TV feed, and center ref goes from not calling a handball in the box to re-refereeing his call, looking at coach's cam, which was a worse angle than what TV had, and it ends up being an equalizer, and it would end up with State and ODU. So State and ODU, it's an equalizer for ODU, a 2-2 draw. And then back in late September, we had an incident with ODU and James Madison where it was a 7-minute review. And you had a center ref who was looking for something, once again, not off of a TV feed because it wasn't available, but off of Spider Cam, and it was something off the field of vision from the TV camera. Then you go back and you're looking at Spider Cam, and apparently you've Zaprudered it, and you're going, okay, this is what I think. And then the coach encourages you to go back and look, because a coach is like, okay, no, it was an elbow, go back and look. Ref goes back and looks, changes his mind, and it ends up with a red on the visitors in a match like that.
Yeah.
My whole point of that discussion was I'd like for there to be a separate video input from the TV feed that is available to center refs. So you're not just looking at coach's cam and a worse angle, and you ended up re-refereeing, which was bad anyway, but then you re-refed to the wrong call. And so this is where I'm encouraging, and this is where I'm imploring you as our resident referee, if we can come up with a separate video input to plug into a video monitor to where you can have the option of Spidey or Coach's Cam or TV feed to have these feeds in the college game. I think it would go a long way.
Well, yeah.
That was a lot of thing to say.
You know, the VAR is only as good as the tools as you get. We've had this discussion with, comparing EPL to MLS, where MLS doesn't draw the lines because they don't have that technology installed into most of their stadiums the way that, the EPL does. Although I don't understand how Bournemouth has any TVs and its cameras in that stadium.
or I would have said Luton, but Luton actually spent $12 million to rent the stadium.
Texas high school stadium is better than Bournemouth's field. But no, I understand the concern, because if you don't have the right tool, if the tool is not adequate, then why are we using it? To the point where it would almost be better if we didn't have the video review possibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now with college soccer, most, if not all, Division I games are on some form of television broadcast, right? Be it streaming or whatever.
Yeah.
So you do, in theory, have access to more cameras. I just don't know how that can work. I'm not sure what I don't even know if it's legalities, but just, liabilities.
And
I don't know.
To your point, I think that it probably would have to be something where, with the NCAA, and we do this, and we experience this in the high school game, that if not everybody can have an official's review, then no one can have officials review. But if
that's why when we had review coming out in college football, there was a reason why certain conferences had it before other conferences, and it's just a matter of, can they afford it? Can they put it in a stadium? Can they get a level playing field for VAR? Because you go to some college soccer stadiums and they're well built, modern facilities. You go to some and it's bleachers on the side of a field.
Yeah. But
enough about Marshall.
No, I guess for me, it was.
By the way, John, let me plug. Sorry,
go for it.
West Virginia is the best college soccer state in the country, and I'm just going to leave that there.
No, and I guess to my point in trying to improve the game, I kind of forgot about the notion of if everybody can't have it, then no one can have it.
Correct.
But I would sit there and say that if you want to do blanket Division I and run it as a test case, then if Division IIs and things like that on the way down can have Spider Cam, and if the game is streamed or televised, then I would say let that codicil be there to help the game, because you don't want to deter the game with incidents and reviews that are that long when you've got a better option. So that was
correct.
That was, I guess, where my
I don't
head
disagree. I think, but like you just said, like we need to get there, but as you know and I know, that doesn't just happen because we wish it. So
yeah, I know. Okay, so this was the other thing that I wanted to discuss with you before, and it had to do with it had to do with a previous comment and a previous thought pattern that we had.
Oh boy,
Ian Whittle from the Telegraph. For the second time in a matter of weeks, John Stones was Manchester City's unlikely goal-scoring savior with a controversial effort that left losing manager Gary O'Neill accusing officials of subconscious bias. The Wolves manager was at pains not to question the honesty or integrity of officials, in this case, referee Chris Kavanagh and VAR official Stuart Atwell, after Stones struck in the fifth and final minute of added time. But with Kavanagh having allowed the goal, disallowed it after consulting an assistant, then re-awarding it following a look at his monitor, the under-pressure Wolves manager looked back at an almost identical situation from last season. In that instance, Wolves had a goal ruled out against West Ham by VAR, leading him to ask a question about the influence of human nature on Premier League officiating. Quote, "I can categorically tell you that they definitely don't mean to. They are 100% honest and they're doing their job the best they can. I just know that from a human point of view, it's tough. Like, I feel different playing Manchester City than playing in the Carabao Cup in the first round. It's a different feeling, and I'm sure they feel the same. I might be miles off, but it just feels like there could be something. If I had to upset someone in a street and there was a little guy and a big guy, I'd be upsetting the little one. There is something in there, and they definitely don't do it on purpose. I know they're 100% honest, and they're doing the best job they can, and I respect them fully, but maybe, not just one maybe, but two, maybe there's something that just edges it in that direction when it's really tight. There's no chance that people are purposely against Wolves. Let's be clear. But is there something in the subconscious around decision-making? Are you more likely to give it to Manchester City than Wolves? End quote. That's Gary O'Neill after the match.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are reasons why people might be, swayed a certain way towards Manchester City. Again, if you can get home with a full tank of gas, I'm sure that you would be more likely to favor Manchester City.
Oh, boy.
But that's the same logic, right, John? I hear this. It's been a while since I've heard this, but, I've heard this before, though. Well, who's paying you, to the referee in the center?
Right.
And I'm like, well, obviously the home club, but I have no allegiance to this damn club. They're just the ones who pay me. If I refereed at your place, you'd pay me. It's obviously with the Premier League, they're getting their paycheck from one source. It's not like City or Wolves are the ones supplying that money, but, we all know that there are extra incentives that Manchester City provides because they've never done that and cooked their books and said, oh, well, we didn't spend that much money on a transfer fee. In fact, we got this dude for free. Don't mind that we're paying him $10 million a day.
It's like I always reference, it's the Gilbert Godfrey scene in Beverly Hills Cop with the parking ticket in one hand and the money in the other.
Yeah.
It's like you see the parking ticket here, and then you see what's in this other hand, and you sit there and you're focusing more on this hand, and then all of a sudden, like, what's in this hand? I don't know. Where did that go to? Before you get out of here, Abby. So how many West Virginians are playing at high levels?
I didn't say that. I said West Virginia is the best state for college soccer. That's what I said, because you got two of the top 10 teams in the country playing on the men's side, a top 10 women's team. Yeah, I'm just that's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about the actual players.
How many players from other states that go to West Virginia?
But as someone who has a cousin who did play for Marshall, I'll say that.
Okay.
Enough.
Yes. All right. So what's coming up next for Soccer for USPOD?
Well, again, I've got to edit that episode recorded last week about the men's friendlies, and then we've got women's friendlies coming up this weekend. We'll see how quickly I can get that turned around. I will be in Nashville for the women's friendly against Iceland, the Kelly O'Hara send-off. So that'll be exciting. Hopefully get to, I don't know, hopefully she walks around the field and I get to say how much we love her and how much we appreciate her as the Georgia girls. No, Abby, I said college soccer. I said college soccer. I said college soccer. I did.
But you're going to Geodis.
Yeah, but I'm going to Geodis again, that stadium up that I got to climb a damn mountain to get to.
Yes. Get your parking in the Speedway. Seriously.
But I'm looking forward to that, John. It'll be fun. I'm glad to get to honor a legend and, one of the best from the state of Georgia to ever do it.
Right on. As always, my friend, great to see you and great to pick your brain about what's going on and hopefully how we can try and improve things when it comes to refereeing, officiating, and the handling of cards.
Needs lots of money, John.
Yeah, but that's why I said
easy to spend someone else's money, not mine.
Well, but you've got the technology there with television. Just take another audio input. It's another audio. It's another video.
I agree.
I agree. HDMI cable into the back. Video 2. That's what I'm saying. Just put it right there in the back. Video 2. Be good, my friend. We'll catch up with you next week.
Bye, y'all.
All right, that's Bart, and I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for the special celebration involving Soccer for USPOD episode 100, because I think this one's 99. Ooh. So I'm waiting for the special celebration. Is 100 a best of that where they get to look at how they have grown in the last 99 episodes? What is 100 going to be? Is 100 going to be a special celebration? That's what I want to know. But I think this one's 99 coming up. Next one that we get to hear from Bart and everybody over at the Soccer for USPOD. As always, great to have him come on Mondays. Here's the rest of the week. And Tuesday, obviously, we'll go over what's going on with Atlanta United and CF Montreal, and we'll see what to stare at there. And also on the board, obviously, we'll look at what happened this past weekend in Major League Soccer to get everybody ready for the postseason. And if there's anything else that is an issue heading into, and let's see if there's anything that happens today since it is no longer regular season time. Is there anything that's going to happen in Kansas City, as an example? Like I said, I have no intel or information one way or the other. I'm just saying, is there anything going to happen in, we know what's happening in Chicago. Does anything happen in New England? We know what's happening in Nashville. Does anything happen in Philly? Does anything happen in Toronto? In D.C., after their match, Troy Lacine and the team had a huddle after the match was over when they realized they were not making the postseason. And then they walked over and faced the Ultras. That was an interesting dynamic to see the DC United players facing the slings and arrows and applause. It was a mixed reaction behind the net, but it was interesting pictures nonetheless as DC United faced the Ultras behind the net after the match was over. So does anything happen in any of those locations in the East? In the West, the San Jose come up with a decision. Gave up 78 goals this season. 78. Is there a decision in Kansas City involving Peter Vermes? Is there a decision in St. Louis? Is there a decision in Dallas? What does Austin have in mind? So all of those decisions we got to keep an eye on going forward here involving Major League Soccer. Does anything happen today? Does anything happen this week? Obviously, that's a big discussion, a big talking point going forward. Wednesday, obviously, tonight on Scarves and Spikes on MLS Monday, I think I'm on for Scarves and Spikes on MLS Monday. I think I'm on. I think we are doing crossovers. And so it will be Tyler hopping in on Wednesday for the review of the match on Tuesday. So Tyler will come in for his time slot, 9:15 on Wednesday morning. And we'll see if we can track down Dylan Butler, Marion Crowder at 10 and 10:30. Thursday, once again, we'll get you ready for everything else going on, all the other news that's happening. And it's a power hour with Nino and Nico from 10 to 11:05. Then on Friday, we'll get you ready for the opening weekend of MLS playoffs. Then hopefully catch up with our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring. By the way, Rhode Island FC and our mogul in training, Michael Parkhurst, they've made the postseason. They don't know where yet. They could be they can be no worse than in. They're in. Depending on math and things like that, there's one more week in the regular season, and then we will see what's going on in USL Championship, USL League One. USL League One, their playoffs are set. Richmond got the last playoff spot after a draw with Tormenta and then the Union Omaha match this past weekend. So Richmond is in. That is your 8. That's your postseason now for USL League One. We're trying to catch up with our friends at the new franchise in Texoma because they have a new coach and a new technical director. And so we'll try and have that for a 1v1 as well. 10 o'clock on Friday, obviously, weekend whip around patent pending trademark coming sooner, hopefully, rather than later. And we will track down everything that's going on there in all of that particular activity. So in MLS Next Pro, Chattanooga FC, while we were discussing things with Bart, they had their end-of-season roster decisions. 6 players' contract options exercised. Logan Brown, Milo Garvanyan, Jalen James, Farid Sarsar, Robert Screen, Callum Watson. 5 players under contract for 25, Jude Arthur, Michael Barueta, Alex McGrath, Mehdi Wamri, who is on the All MLS Next Pro 11 for the season, and Jesse Williams. Jean-Antoine, Jonathan Burke, Luis Garcia Sosa, Taylor Gray, Jesus Ibarra, Andres Jimenez Aranzazu, Ethan Koren, Minjae Kwok, Marcus Nagelstad, Joseph Perez, Anatoly Prepolita, Damian Rodriguez, and Duvan Villafara are all out of contract. Negotiations are ongoing with some players who are out of contract as they get ready for their 2025 season. But Chattanooga FC to our north has made most of their roster ideas laid out for the 2025 season now that the 2024 season is done. Mentioned a couple of things involving some stories going around, and this came out over the weekend Gordon Rayner, the associate editor of the Telegraph. Newcastle United takeover controlled by Mohammed bin Salman, according to leaked WhatsApp messages. Messages from Amanda Stavely claim that the Saudi crown prince pulled the strings behind the scenes of the deal. And this is, so here's how it's phrased. Salman personally controlled the takeover by the state's sovereign wealth fund. Leaked WhatsApp messages seen by the Telegraph suggest. So they suggest it. Messages from Amanda Stavely, who brokered the club's sale by Mike Ashley to the PIF, raised questions over guarantees made to the Premier League to secure the deal. The cache of WhatsApps, I guess that's what you call them, the cache of WhatsApps suggests the Crown Prince was signing off key decisions. At one point, Ms. Stavely warns the sellers that, quote, the Crown Prince is losing patience, end quote, and when the deal hit trouble, she said the governor of PIF was, quote, trying to convince the Crown Prince not to pull out, end quote. Messages shed new light on the extended political involvement in the takeover. And then they have separate sections of the messages posted. Stavely enlisted the help of the Saudi ambassador to the UK to rescue the deal, saying on August 6, 2020, the UK Saudi ambassador spoke to the Crown Prince this morning. Later that month, sent another message that read, we need to update the Saudi ambassador at 4 p.m. as he needs to update the Crown Prince. In April of 2021, Boris Johnson, then Prime Minister, said his government was not involved at any point in takeover talks on the sale of Newcastle. In a written parliamentary answer, however, Ms. Stavely was in direct contact with Lord Grimstone, then the Minister for Investment, and told the sellers of the club that the minister, quote, pushed behind the scenes and made it very clear that their preference is for the deal to go ahead. And then there is a list of messages that happened in the middle of that afternoon. So via lawyers, Stavely said she only ever referenced the Crown Prince in his capacity as chairman of the PIF to suggest that her messages cast doubt on whether the assurances about independence from the Saudi state have been adhered to. Subsequently, quote, is as illogical as it is misconceived, Stavely said through her lawyers. So that is the first round of requested reading for the day to lay out what's going on there. So that came out over the weekend. One matchup today in the Premier League. It is Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest. It will be the first match for Evangelinas Marinakis, the owner of Nottingham Forest, not to be allowed in the building. First of 5. So that's what. So you have that this afternoon. We'll get into juice boxes coming up in just a little bit. Let's see. Going over the other elements. There was one incident that I forgot to mention, and it was the Chelsea Robert Sanchez card. Could have been a red, sliding in for a tackle. So save that one. So Sanchez and Chelsea and the card. So that was what that was one that I forgot to put on the table. Sam Wallace, the chief football writer at the Telegraph. So it is a piece on Barcelona. Over the space of 3 weeks in the summer of 22, they agreed to sell a quarter of their domestic TV rights for 25 years to 6th Street for £555 million. Then convincing all concerned it was simply a commercial windfall. Soon, the UEFA adjudicatory chamber would also disagree. All made the simple point under financial fair play rules, this was not what the lawyers consider relevant income. It was disposal of tangible assets. To others, it was debt. And so Barcelona took the case all the way to CAS. And in that court's judgment published on Friday, one gained an insight into the mindset of a club that may be as much as €3 billion in debt, including the new camp rebuild. Barcelona's excuses, their board, led by Joan Laporta, had inherited one of the largest debts in football. And so what do? They add more debt. Refused the suggestion of a period of austerity because to do so would jeopardize the performance of their team and, quote, long-term revenue generation. Barcelona redacted their accounts, tried to convince regulators that the 6th Street deal could be regarded as both debt and income, according to the requirement. When that failed, they complained that their membership model meant it was impossible to inject equity like privately owned European rivals. When UEFA pointed out 41% of their members have a similar ownership structure and nothing like the indebtedness of Barcelona, the strategy changed again. UEFA, the club said, was targeting Barcelona because they continued to be a part of the European Super League project. Peace deals were suggested. Barcelona rejected a plea deal with UEFA that would have earned a smaller fine of €80,000 and an admission that the 6th Street income was non-admissible under FFP. Club battled on all the way to the final courtroom at CAS and lost. Part of that 2022 sell-off funded fees for Rafinha, Jules Koundé, and Robert Lewandowski. Short term, the sell-off helped meet the club's calls on cash for salary commitments, but the €667.5 million is now officially in no use in complying with UEFA FFP. Seems inevitable UEFA will fail Barcelona's FFP compliance for the monitoring period for the financial year ending in 23, and again for the period ending in 24. The scale of the breach will determine the size of the fine. That's cool and all that you want to fine Barcelona, but what makes you think they're going to be able to pay it? Just saying. UEFA was waiting for the cash judgment to be sure of its position on the 6th Street deal. Announcement imminent. Barcelona complied for the FFP monitoring period, ending with the 22 financial year, even with the first €267 million tranche of the 6th Street funding struck out by UEFA, but they can't do that anymore. Clubs are monitored by UEFA over a rolling 3-year period. Barcelona benefited from years in which results were better, but those fall away over time under the new squad cost rules. Looks pretty bad. Real Madrid have also sold future income from their refitted Bernabeu to 6th Street in order to finance the present, although their reliance is not as great as their rivals. Barcelona fined €500,000 by UEFA for the FFP submission. They refused to accept UEFA's view that the inclusion of the funds from the sale of the future revenue was inadmissible. Another layer added to the mountain of debt. 0.08% of Barcelona's revenue, cash judged the fine to be rather mild. And now UEFA gets to figure out what they're going to fine them this time. And so, yes, it seems that clubs' response to being in debt is to spend more money. Once again, no real surprise. Didn't know if you saw this. Women's footballers are demanding that FIFA, and this was when I was kind of reacting the way that I was when Bart was discussing Manchester City. Women's footballers are demanding that FIFA axe the Saudi oil sponsorship deal. Vivian Miedema says that players may take further action if Aramco remains a sponsor for the 27 World Cup. More than 100 women's footballers have urged FIFA to drop a sponsorship deal with Saudi oil giant Aramco, branding it, quote, a middle finger, end quote, to the female game. Vivian Miedema, England defender Niamh Charles, among signatories drawn on a letter saying the deal is worse than an own goal. FIFA earlier announced the partnership with the state-owned firms until 2027 for sponsorship for the next men's and women's World Cups. However, players from 24 countries write in a letter supported by the campaign group Athletes of the World. The Aramco sponsorship is a middle finger to women's football. FIFA's announcement of Saudi Aramco as its major partner has set us so far back, it's hard to fully take in. Saudi Aramco is the main money pump for Saudi Arabia and is 98.5% state-owned. Saudi authorities have been spending billions in sports sponsorship to try to distract from the regime's brutal human rights reputation, but its treatment of women speaks for itself. Letter cites the jailing of women in Saudi Arabia last year. Group says it urges FIFA to reconsider the partnership and replace Saudi Aramco with alternative sponsors whose values align with gender equity, human rights, and the safe future for our planet. Also, in the letter, it says, we also propose the establishment of a review committee with player representation to evaluate the ethical implications of future sponsorship deals and ensure they align with our sport's values and goals, end quote. Miedema says that it could lead to further action. I think you've seen over the past couple of years that women's teams are not scared to stand up for what they believe in. You've seen boycotts from numerous teams. Everyone's open, very open and willing to share their opinions. Independent think tank Carbon Tracker says Aramco is, quote, the world's largest corporate greenhouse gas emitter. FIFA says it values its partnership with Aramco and stressed that sponsorship revenues were reinvested in the women's game at all levels. Aramco has yet to respond to requests for comment. Fourcard has already taken a drag of a cigarette, rubbed his forehead, and given the big exhale. So keep an eye on that. We'll see what happens there. My anticipated answer is not much. Virgil van Dijk has no idea if he'll be at Liverpool next season, considering what is the current contract set of negotiations. So keep an eye on that. There's an article from Ian Hawkey at the Times looking at the situation at Valencia and how much the fans hate their owner. And they are right now at the bottom of La Liga. And if they get relegated, then it will be interesting from a journalistic point of view to see what goes on at Valencia. But once again, what will happen? That is the larger question if they continue to see what is going on with owners that don't invest. Ian Whittle at the Times. I have an account with the Times, people. It's like, thank you for reading. Access this article for free. How about I log in and you give it to me? And this is what happens when you clear the cookies out from your computer because it claims that you have no memory available. And so you wipe out all the cookies and then you have to sit there and try to rebuild everything. Trevor Birch, the chief exec of the EFL, has revealed there are no plans to discuss introduction of VAR to the championship despite recent glaring officiating errors. They've categorically ruled out taking fixtures overseas, a possibility mooted in the summer because of American owners being in situ at Birmingham City and Wrexham. However, Trevor Birch has expressed sympathy with a growing number of championship managers who want to bring the summer transfer window in line with the start of the domestic season, although such a change could take place only with the cooperation of the Premier League. Birch addressed some of the issues in the championship. On the field, he believes that the league's emphasis on authentic football has ruled out certain changes being implemented, such as VAR, despite increased television coverage of the championship highlighting officiating errors coming up in the last couple of weeks. Birch said, quote, depending on a club's experience of it or a game at the weekend and whether they have been on the wrong side or the wrong end of a decision, it tends to sway what their opinion might be. Birch says there has not been universal acceptance that VAR is the panacea for all ills. This gets into our discussion about VAR from this morning. I would think you would want to make yourself better. To be perfectly honest, this would not surprise me that if Trevor Birch was saying that the EFL does not need VAR, I'm guessing it's probably something financial. And the cost of having it in a football pyramid, especially with promotion relegation, you have 4 teams that would be relegated each year and 4 that would be promoted. So what you're doing is you're installing VAR in stadia that may only be there for a year, and then same for teams that get promoted from League One. And so you end up having to spend resources in stadia where it might not be a hold of that resource. But I would like to think also that if the Premier League wants to make things better, if everything is supposed to be reliant on the Premier League when it comes to rules and rules changes, that the Premier League would want you to be adjusted to, if you want to multifold, if you want your officials to get better, if you want the game to be officiated better, if you want to have results on the pitch that are truer, then I would think that the Premier League as a part of that pyramid would want to assist in having the EFL have VAR available to them for all of their matches every weekend and having the cameras that are available in each venue so you can do a just view of the game when it comes to VAR. I'm just saying. Like I said, I'm just saying. We will keep it under review, but in terms of other issues to consider, there's cost, the logistics, the number of VAR operators you need, referees. There is all that aspect to it as well, and that is true. You need VAR booths. You need another set of officials. And here's where I would suggest that you had an exchange program. Once the Major League Soccer regular season is over, and this is what we've discussed in the past about having an exchange program with officials in Central and South America because the season is different. And then the officials in North America understand what the game is going to be like in Central and South America if they ever have the opportunity to call something in a competition that involves, teams from both continents. I think the same could apply with what's going on in Europe. I think that you could have officials here in North America jumpstart the process of having officials and official sets prepared for the EFL, starting it at the championship level, obviously. And then we've seen VAR and AVAR do double headers on weekends in Major League Soccer. Have an exchange program and show, even if it's a test case this year, while during the winter months when there's nothing going on, if you're Don Garber and you are pro, have pro go over and walk English officials through the idea of VAR. Give them something to do during the winter months. Give them a paid stipend. Hey, you get to go over to England and teach them how to use VAR. You do it this year as kind of like a test deal. Just sit folks in a room and almost do seminars. I think that I understand why Trevor Birch is poo-pooing it. Cost, logistics. Cost, I think, could be deferred and assisted by the Premier League. Logistics of it, VAR operators, since you are dead set on having everything short of a couple of matchups in front and behind of the 10 a.m. window here in the United States, then you have to treat it like Major League Soccer. You need to have, maximum 15 crews, centralized location for looking at VAR, referees, all that. Yeah. But I'd like to think that your friends at the Premier League, who are at the top of your pyramid that you are looking to try and improve from the top down and from the bottom up, would want to assist. That's just me. Unless the Premier League is not interested financially in helping out things and improving the overall state of their game in the country. Yes, this is Alex. This is the season where the refs were on strike. Yes, it is. It still is. Unbelievable. Abby, thanks for dropping by this morning, as always. Birch was even more unequivocal regarding the possibility of games moving overseas, so it's not going to happen. There are no prospects. And then he continued his quote. One issue where Birch could see change, however, is in the prospect of bringing summer transfer activity in line with the fixtures. The EFL's profit and sustainability rules contributed to a frantic summer in which clubs played their opening 4 games with the transfer window still open, personnel coming and going. A number of managers publicly called for the window to close before the season starts, an appeal with which Birch sympathizes, although he considered it would require the Premier League at a minimum to follow suit. Adoption of new regulations is one of the number of complex financial issues facing the EFL, the championship in particular, in which parachute payments are among the most challenging. The payments, which involve relegated clubs receiving 55% of the central broadcasting distribution earned by each Premier League side in the first season after relegation, is the most glaring threat to a league that prides itself on its unpredictability. So the Times has an article with Trevor Birch. So that would be part 2 for required reading. I know it does feel like actually, I mean, Alex, yeah, it does feel like a lifetime ago, but it also feels like it was just yesterday. It's like, holy crap, the season started and we had replacement officials. Yeah, same season. Crazy that we're to this point. That legitimately it is, one of those where you're like, man, it seems like it was yesterday, but at the same time it doesn't, if that makes any sense. So, absolutely crazy that, yes, we are to that particular point of the season. Oh, yeah, I got to talk about this before we go and how crazy it is. Okay. There's something from our friends at World Soccer Talk that I've got to bring in. According to the Guardian, West Ham, Julian Lopetegui is not in imminent danger of being sacked. So you got that to kind of hang on to for a little bit. All right, so we'll go to the thing at World Soccer Talk before we get into gossip, rumor, and innuendo and what to watch before we go. Okay, legitimately, this is from World Soccer Talk. So there was a story. That involves a particular player and the idea that he could be brought to Messi and friends to start it all over again. And it's from our friends at I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Neymar. Legitimately. Apparently, possibly, probably, perhaps. From Martina Alcheva. Messi, Suarez, and Neymar would be different than they were from 2014 to 2017. Reports are emerging that he's got a verbal agreement to join Messi and friends. Season-ending injury while on international duty last October signed him for a full year, limiting his playing time with Al Hilal. Got a medal for five matches. Contract in Riyadh expires in June of 25. According to FC Barcelona Noticias, verbally agreed to join Messi and friends. Messi, Suarez, Busquets, Alba, Neymar. Briefly reunited at PSG. Messi had previously expressed doubts about Neymar's immediate availability. In a June interview, acknowledged the difficulty of Neymar's move given his injury and ongoing contract. Neymar did say in a 2022 interview he'd love to play there for at least a season, meaning Major League Soccer. So, hang on to that. Hang on to it. Apparently, Cristiano Ronaldo's salary is double that of Lionel Messi, so he's making $40 million to play in Saudi Arabia. Highest paid soccer players Forbes list is out. William Friedkin, apparently, the Friedkin Group is opting for Graham Potter to replace Sean Dyche at Everton should it get to that point. And that will be interesting. I'm sure that Sean Dyche will be asked about that a couple of times between now and the end of the world, as we see. But gossip, rumor, and innuendo, what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it before we get out of here. All right. So, yeah, Derek, hey, the same way, like I said, Chris Henderson and John Thorrington should be grabbed and or celebrated for how they are massaging, and I'll use that word, the cap structure. If it's an NIL deal, more power to them. Because, think about it. Messi is making 20, and he's on all of these commercials. So if it's 20 and an NIL deal gets you twice that, that's how I can see this happening. That's how I'm seeing things. I'm looking at it almost like in a college football landscape with name, image, and likeness. If you've got a deal, if you've got a contract for a team plus endorsement opportunities that are outside the purview of the league salary cap, that's how you make your balance. That's why Messi's doing Lowe's or Home Depot or whoever it is. That's why Messi's doing Lay's. Extra money. Extra money that way. Everton plotting a move to sign AC Milan's Samuel Chukwueze in the January window. Manchester United aiming to convince Bayern Munich's Alphonso Davies to choose them over Real Madrid when his contract expires at the end of the year. Arsenal could land Dusan Vlahovic for a bargain price because the Juve striker's in talks with his club over a new contract, and they're not progressing well. Thomas Tuchel's parted ways with longtime coaching partner Salt Löw before taking up the role in England, three-letter paper. Villa have entered the race to sign Brian Mbeumo from Brentford. Manchester United may loan Joshua Zirkzee to Juve if they sign Benjamin Sesko from RB Leipzig in the summer. City, Liverpool, Spurs have set their sights on Real Valladolid's Raul Moro. Borussia Dortmund's winger Jamie Bino Gittins drawing interest from Arsenal, Spurs, Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest, though the German club want more than £50 million for the player before they'll consider selling. Arsenal, Juve, AC Milan, and Napoli among the clubs watching Como midfielder Nico Paz. And Xavi has been linked with taking over as manager of the Qatari national team. That's from Al Raya this morning. Juve also had to pulled down a 280-character app post where they had said on their English language account that they had signed Arda Güler. They are now claiming that their account was hacked. So that's what you're staring at with gossip, rumor, and innuendo. What to watch, how to watch it, and where to watch it. Remember, you got Forest without an owner in the owner's box taking on Crystal Palace. And so that is later today. Also on the board, we'll check college soccer in a sec. Forest and Palace at 3 on USA. Valencia, Las Palmas at 3 on ESPN Deportes. Universo is simulcasting the Premier League game. ESPN Plus is simulcasting La Liga. NBCSports.com is simulcasting as well on the Premier League side. AFC Champions League Elite. 3 matches at noon, 1 at 2 o'clock. They're all on Paramount Plus. Al Ain Al Hilal, Al Saad Persepolis, Al Shorta Paktakor. They're the nooners. And at 2, it's Al Rayyan and Al Aqli. College soccer today. Out west. Pacific, Stanford, ACC Extra at 10. On the men's side, UCLA and Maryland is on BTN at 10. 8 o'clock, on women's side, Grand Canyon and Utah Valley in the UAC. And Houston and BYU in the Big 12 is on ESPN Plus. That's at 9 o'clock. So it's a light day for stuff in the college game. As always, thanks for dropping by. Thanks for hanging out. And it was a big day and a busy day here on the show because we got to look at things from an Atlanta United perspective. Atlanta United in is the 9. Matchup is tomorrow. Yeah, Alex Henderson will be in Atlanta soon enough. So we won't get to see that come to fruition. Hey, keep an eye on that. So keep an eye out for Scarves and Spikes tonight. MLS Monday, I think I'm on. So be sure to join us there where we discuss anything and everything going on Major League Soccer. Go to soccerdownhere.net. Maddie's got a preview up of Atlanta United and CF Montreal. You can read that to get your prep ready as well. Back at it again tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, 9:05, where we're going to roll through everything in Major League Soccer from the last weekend. We'll see if anything happened today when it comes to decisions. We'll get you ready for Atlanta United and CF Montreal. And that'll be once again pregame 6:30, 92.9 the game on the Odyssey app. Game is at 7:40. Full-time report after that. Winner gets to go and take on. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to get into this morning. I know that it shocks you, but Inter Miami and Messi and friends have been named as Team 32 for the Club World Cup for 2025. Gianni Infantino, who apparently over the weekend felt very Art Deco. He was in Miami for the presentation of the pie plate to announce that the first match of the Club World Cup in 2025 would be at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami involving Inter Miami. Shocked once, twice, 3 times ad infinitum. And there were a lot of MLS teams, apparently, according to social media, that were not pleased with how that whole situation was navigated by the league / announced and come to as Team 32. Please tell me that you are not shocked. He felt Dale, absolutely. You cannot, if you were another MLS team and that you were doing well, you cannot be shocked. You should not be shocked. You cannot be shocked at that decision. Please, you cannot be shocked. Hey, the future home of Neymar? Possibly, probably, maybe, perhaps. You cannot be shocked. Gianni Infantino is doing his best Brandon Tartikoff right now. He is programming a grid. And for the American audience, for a Club World Cup that does not have a TV partner at present, what do? You draw eyeballs to your product. Still looking for a TV partner in the U.S.? I think you're still looking for universal TV partners as well. But what do? Duh. No brainer. As long as Messi is a part of your universe, you plug into that. Draw folks in to your product. Who shot JR? What happened in what happened to cause Hawkeye Pierce to lose his mind in the last episode of MASH? Sam kicking the young couple out of Cheers. Where are the friends folks going to go get a cup of coffee? Ross and Rachel kissing for the first time. That's what you're looking for. It's a wild card, meaning that you can go and pick who you want. And what's the best thing to do if you're programming a television product? Ratings, 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 eyeballs, 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 streaming, streaming, streaming. Messy, messy, messy. It's not hard. But feeling Dale, he wanted to, meaning Gianni Infantino. It's going to start at Hard Rock. It's going to involve Inter Miami. Please tell me you're not shocked. We've been talking about it for as long as that wild card was available. The host country wild card, or whatever it was called. Duh. Knew it was going to be that way. Now it officially is. Now we know where the tournament's going to start. Now we know what's going on. 6 matches are going to be in Seattle. The B matches in Atlanta. It's all going to roll. And Messi and friends are your 32nd team. Please do not be shocked. And Alex, right on. So if it's a wild card, MIA sets the points record and are marketable. Don't think it's some great tragedy. I don't either. I mean, it should not be a surprise. Just all of the hue and cry and the gnashing of teeth and the wagging of fingers by other MLS teams apparently that were not pleased with how this was handled. Come on now. Do not be shocked. Anyway. All right, back at it again, 9:05 tomorrow morning, a little less than 22. Maybe we'll all feel Dale tomorrow. And if there's a win on Tuesday night, we'll definitely feel Dale on Wednesday. So we break everything down. So back at it again, a little less than 22. We'll break everything down tomorrow, go through Major League Soccer, anything else that's going on, because there's plenty to talk about and there's plenty of stuff to do. Thanks to all of you guys for being a part of this, as you always are, and being a part of the SDH Network and all of its growth. That's it for another morning show back in a little less than 22. Thanks to Bart. Thanks to Jarrett. Thanks to Abe. Thanks to you. We'll see you again tomorrow. I got to play the outro and get out of here. We'll see you later.